Welcome back, everyone. And now we're ready to, now that we have our pictures, we're going to start plopping them in. And the easiest thing to do is I have my folder here, and I'm just going to drag and drop, boop, into my Illustrator page. And look how easy that is. Now that I have this folder, I can just drag it and drop it, and I can start thinking about what I want to include. Now I've decided that I want to have both interior and exterior images and a process image for each of the pieces. So I'm going to have a photo as well as some images for one of his sites. And I'm going to do the same for his other sites. Now, when it comes to the interface, I'm dragging and dropping in, but then once you've added the image, you're going to want to be able to move them around. Make sure you use the black cursor, which is the selection tool. You can also press V to switch to it, and then I can move these images to whatever location I like, and then I can also scale them. So if I grab the side, uh, like the corner, I can scale the image. However, if you don't want it to stretch, you might want to hold Shift to scale the image, or I press this lock and then, oh, actually, I don't think the lock helps unless I'm typing it. Anyway, hold Shift and then it'll scale nicely. Um, I'm just going to put the images to the side so that they're not on the artboard yet, and I'm just going to work on this first image to try to lock it down. Um, so with this image, I'm going to then, I want to add some text. Of course, I want to have the title of the architect. So from here, I use what's called the text tool. Then up here, the menu changes to be the options for the text tool. You can start by just clicking, and it'll create a blank text box that you can then type in. So I'm going to type Stephen Hall. And then if I want to change the size, I can select the text, just like box select it. And then from there, I can play around with the size. I go pretty big. I can even go bigger if I wanted to. I could go 100 point. And then I switch back to my selection tool and I can move it around to try to align it up. So now I have my text and I have my person. And for here, I also want to think of a font. So I have to think of a font that defines him. And I feel like he's a very modern architect, so I don't think that a serif font would be appropriate. I think even something like this Neo Sans looks pretty good. I might go with that. I could look at a few others and see if there's anything else. I even have some Jedi fonts. That's pretty cool. But for now, I think I'm just going to go with. I actually really like the Neo Sans. That's pretty nice. So Neo Sans, unfortunately, only has one typeface in the series. It only has one font in the series. I might have to play around with finding another font for the body text. So I'm just going to line it up like this. I can scale my text also by holding Shift, and it'll change the font automatically. So if you don't like having to go and edit it this way, you can just scale it. And you can even stretch it in weird ways. But I usually hold Shift to click and scale it to the size I want. So that's my text. Then I'm going to want to think about some of the other information I want to include. So I'm going to go back to my research. And I decided to include a quote because I think that a quote helps us to get a sense of the person. So why don't I start next by playing around with that text. So I'm going to take my quote. I'm going to create a new text box here and then paste my quote there. Now, this is way too big, so I'm going to change the size down to maybe 14. And I think that I want to have it on two lines. So I'm going to press Enter here to create a new line. And then I'll scale this up. So now I have his quote. It's at 17-point font. And it's also a Neo Sans. And that looks okay. This, when it's larger, is nice and bold. When it's smaller, it's a little bit less dominant. I could now, if I want to change the color, go over here, double click, and I can change this to be maybe slightly off. So now, and it kind of matches this background a bit, and it's not quite as dominant. So it has a bit less emphasis, which is what I think is helps bring out his name a bit better. I could choose to scale this down and just lock it to that size for now. Maybe space this out, maybe move this like this, bring this down. I can also use arrow keys up and down to position my objects. So basically I'm using the selection tool, I'm moving things around, I'm adding text, and then I'm moving it, scaling it, adjusting the size, and I'm using arrow keys to be even more precise with my positioning. I'm going to make sure also that I don't go all the way to the edge because when I print, um, this is probably the closest I can get without it cropping off a part of my image or affecting the scale. So I think that I'll probably go something like that. I could even select everything and just scale it up. This is the thing I like about Adobe Illustrator is that everything is treated as vectors and everything is treated as formatting in the same way. Whereas something like InDesign, I find it has trouble handling text and images together. They're treated as very distinct, which ends up causing problems. I can try centering this just to see if I like that better. Nah, I like it left justified because I want to have this lined up. Okay, so now I've added this. I've set this up the way I want. It's pretty good. I could maybe... Nah, I don't like that. Um, Next would be to add, to bring my images back in. So I've, I have some images that I've already got in here, and I put them to the side just so that I remember and can kind of give me some ideas of how I want to use them. And then I have 3 images. And so what I might want to do is kind of have, uh, I could put 2 images on one side, and then I could try one image on this side and try to chunk it out a little bit. So I could try to do that to create kind of a 3 image group. And that doesn't look too bad. Um, when you're working with images and where to position them, there's a lot to think about. Um, there's a lot of things that you can try to do in terms of like, I have this hard line here that's created, and this hard line goes up and lines up with his head a little bit. If I wanted to really check, I can go over here, view, rulers, show rulers. I can then drag this over from the left, and now I can see how that lines up. And I can say, you know what, that actually would be a pretty good line. So I'm going to go over here and line that up as best I can. I have to, and then I'm going to say, you know what, I want to make sure this is the same. So I'm going to line that up. I'm just going to tap this a few times. And that's pretty good. And now that creates a hard line. Sometimes the rulers get locked, so I trying to remember the hotkey for unlocking the rulers. If you want to hide the rulers, you go Control and semicolon. It turns the rulers on and off. If someone finds out how to unlock the rulers, feel free to post in the comments. I can't remember. And it's not important at this point to be able to adjust them again, but you'll probably find it frustrating, as I do. Um, Now, I have this set of images that I want to include. Um, Next, I'm probably going to want to put something here, and then maybe put some other text here, and then I can include some other information of my next one. Now, these images also I might also want to have some of these be a bit smaller, because I'm going to have to put more pictures in, because I want to have it try to fit 3 different sites on this. So I think I might need to scale these down just so that it can, in the end, line up, allow me to fit more images. So I'm going to do that, scale that, and then maybe I could put something just down the side here. So I'm going to scale this down just a bit more. The key is I have an exterior shot, I have an interior shot, and I have a design shot. I like this layout of having the three different types of shots. So now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a text box. So I go here, I drag like this, and it creates what's called a text box. The text box allows me to have multiple lines of text and adjust it as I want. And then I also want to, and I'm going to keep that text box there. Okay, so it's still there. I am also, I think, going to put a text box here. So I'm going to put a text box across the top, like that. And I can even leave it, by default, it adds something called lorem ipsum in this version of Illustrator, which I find is actually kind of handy for helping me block out my text. So I'm going to go like that, like that. So now I have two text blocks that I'm going to then fill with information. And then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to need a title for this because I need a title for this uh, art museum. So I'm going to then put one here. I'll go title, and we're gonna go. Let's say 60. No, that's too big. 40 maybe. So I have my title here. I could try doing that. That looks good. So I'm blocking things out. I like the way this is laid out. This is pretty nice. So then I can then copy some of this stuff and move it to lay it out on my next one. So I'm going to Control C, click over here, Control V. It ended up putting it there for some reason. The other way to copy is, what I prefer is actually holding Alt and then dragging, and it creates that copy of that thing. So now here's my second one. This one maybe I will left justify and put it here, and then I could then Alt copy and remove another one. So then I have my third, which I will put down here. Then the other thing I think I want is that design philosophy. So I have his quote. I'm going to have information about this. I'm going to have the same thing for these. And then the other last piece, if I go back, I have shape, space, and light, contextual sensitivity, anchoring to the site, material resonance, dissonance. This is his design philosophy. I want to make sure I include some of that. So I'm going to create another text box. I'll put it here for now, and that's going to be, let's go with 20 point for now, maybe 30. And that's going to be that philosophy of architecture that he has. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to leave it there or not, but I can put it there and I can move it around whenever I want. This is definitely more text than I need to include for this one, so I can probably move some of this around. And that's basically the main tools that you need to use for this. You're going to want to drag images in. So I have, let's say I have another image. This is one of the other buildings, so I'm going to drag that in for this one down here. So I have a nice exterior shot for that building. And so you drag images in, you create text boxes using the text tool, you adjust the fonts up here, and you can adjust the color here. So if I select something, I can double click. So let's say I want this, and this to also, so I'm holding shift, click, click, double click to change here. I'm gonna, oh yeah, and the other thing is I can just take this and go boop, and it matches. So it'll copy the same thing. But then, so that's the eyedropper tool. But if I want it to be a bit smaller, then I just shrink it down again. I wouldn't go more than 13-point font for your information text. You can go bigger for titles and for your quotes or like famous words, but I would not go big for any information text that you're going to include. So we have a layout here. We have information about the architect. We have his quote. Um, Another thing that you could try to fit into your poster is the analysis of the designs. But perhaps I would suggest doing it in point form. So in the case of Stephen Hall, that analysis led me to understanding his style and characteristics. But the analysis of the 3 designs or more, if I might do 4, I'm not sure if I'll be able to fit them all, um, would be what do I find similar in these 3 designs? How do they, like, what are some common themes? And how does that help connect back to his design philosophy? So that's for that specific assignment, that's what we're looking for. Anyway, um, I feel like that gives you a good baseline of what techniques are used. And I might create another video later with some more advanced techniques, maybe go over, like, once this example's finished, some of the techniques I used to create it. Um, but I think that'll be enough to get you started. Thanks for watching, and good luck.